when I think of authentic people, one of the first women that come to mind, and you may be able to guess who she is once I get done describing her. When she was born, she was very pale, red hair, very frail. She wasn't expected to live to adulthood. And in fact, at the age of 2, her mother was actually accused of a crime and beheaded. And she was considered a bastard child and sent to go live in exile. She had a lot of things going against her, right? It's pretty rough. I mean, if I can't get my coffee, I think I'm having a hard day. So this young woman found herself in a really horrible predicament. As she grew up, though, with some certain things that changed in her life, she suddenly found herself stepping in to be the Queen of England at the age of 25. And if you haven't figured out who I'm talking about, it's Elizabeth I. She was a very, very unique leader who brought authenticity into a world that very much fought authenticity. She brought interesting leadership into a world that thought you should be beheaded if you were different. I mean, I'm telling you, that kind of makes my neck itch a little bit there. All right, thank goodness we don't do beheading anymore. But could you imagine, think for me a minute, when you were 25, what were you doing? Anyone thinking they could step into Queen of England? Just curious, not me. So Elizabeth stepped in, and one of the first cultural norms, one of the first things that was expected of her was to go get a husband from another country so that way she could have a successor. Elizabeth realized if she got a husband from a foreign country, first she would lose all her power, and then she would bring someone in who didn't know or love the country like she did. And she would lose the power that she desperately needed to change her country because Europe was going under really bad. Her dad, who killed her mom and exiled her because her mom wasn't having boys, only girls, he didn't do a very good job. So Elizabeth knew that she had to make change. She had to be her authentic self. Elizabeth loved to hunt. She loved to read, 2 things that royal women didn't do in that time frame. She was different. She would interact with the commoners. She would go about and love to jog and just do things that women didn't do back then, because the idea was that women didn't have the mental capacity to run a country. But Elizabeth did. So Elizabeth took her authentic leadership and started to make change in a country where change was not accepted. She would put on armor and ride into battle with her people, right? Most royal women don't do that. She did everything from also keeping her health. In those days, people died usually 30 years of age or younger. Elizabeth had a 40-year reign. She never married. She never had a successor. And she took a country that was dying, starving, to one of the most powerful countries in the world at that time. So when I think about what Elizabeth did in a very difficult time, where you could be beheaded for just not agreeing with someone, and how her authenticity not just changed the people around her, but changed an entire country, is pretty amazing. When I think about myself and my journey and where I was going, I look back at the first time I decided to not be my authentic self. I was 18 years old. I had gone to college, had a full ride scholarship to play volleyball and basketball, and I was really excited, and I wanted to be a sports journalist, a writer. And so I get in, I take my first class in English, I'm going to be a writer, I get my first paperback, D-. I'm like, what? I'm a writer. I can't have a D-. I'm supposed to be a sports writer. So I do what any good student does. I go to the professor. I say, hi, what do I need to do to improve? And he says, Julie, you're just not smart enough to be in college. You should drop out. And I was like stunned. I stood there what seemed like a lifetime going, but I'm supposed to be a writer. So I get up. I leave his office. I'm crying. I do what any good young college girl does. I called my mom and cried. And my mom did what any good mom would do. She said, he's an idiot, get a tutor. Thank you, Mom. They have such perspective, right? And so I get this tutor, and I make it through the class with a C. This is not the first time, by the way, I am told in my first 4 years of college that I'm not smart enough. I had another professor who told Karen and myself that we did not have a voice for radio or TV or anything, and we should find another road. That's pretty devastating when that's all you want to do. As I started to fight past this, I thought, okay, I'm not smart enough, so I need to be smart enough. So I got my master's by 22. I started teaching at college at the age of 23. By the age of 24, I had 2 businesses. By the age of 25, I was married. And by the age of 30, I had my doctorate and 3 businesses. And I was the dean over 20 universities. But it's amazing how one sentence can hang on to you. Because I kept hearing, you're not good enough. So I thought, well, I need to do what everyone says I need to do. I need to get all my degrees. I need to get all my experience. I need to prove that I'm smart enough. Which the funny thing is, I was smart enough all along, but I just didn't see it. So as I took this path and I ended up in this big position, I was like, that's it. I've made it. I'm here. About 6 months in, I was like, this is the worst job I've ever had in my life. So I took a step back. A really wonderful mentor called her and said, hey, you know that big dean job I got? I want to quit it. And she kind of went, what? You work so hard? I go, yeah, it's kind of, I don't like it. So I took a really big step. I told my husband, hey, you know that really big salary I got right now? Yeah, I kind of want to quit. Do you mind if I not get that anymore? And thankfully my husband was like, as long as you can make up the money, sure. So I took a really big step. I stepped out of that job, and I went to do what I love to do, which was my businesses, empowering people, writing, which they say I stink at writing, but hey, Karen, we made the top 60 list, so we did something right. And started doing what I love, love, love. So when I think about authenticity and how can we embrace it, because honestly, it is terrifying to think about embracing who you really want to be. Because it's scary sometimes, right? It's not always easy. What I really want to encourage you today, we have some amazing speakers here, panelists, workshops. I mean, this is a dream to get these people all under one building. It doesn't happen very often. Is to really look at who you are, what you're doing, what is the one authentic thing that you want to do, if you could do it. Doesn't mean it's going to happen today, doesn't mean it's going to happen tomorrow, but what gets you to that path. So today, as you listen to each one of these amazing speakers, I really encourage you to do a little inventory check and find out how you can be your authentic self, how you can empower yourself, or how you can empower someone else.